I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The front door slammed against the wall with enough force to rattle the picture frames. Reese Calhoun looked up from his laptop, coffee mug halfway to his lips, as his 11-year-old son burst into the living room. Maddox's face was white as paper. Sweat soaked through his school uniform despite the October chill. His backpack hung crooked on one shoulder, books scattered across the hardwood floor where he'd dropped it. "Dad," the word came out as a gasp. "We have to get out. Right now." Reese set down his mug. In Afghanistan, he'd learned to read panic in a soldier's eyes, the difference between fear and terror, between concern and life-or-death urgency. What he saw in Maddox's face made his blood freeze. This wasn't about bullies or failed tests or forgotten homework. This was survival mode. Combat instincts kicked in. Assess the threat. Secure the asset. Move to defensible position. Maddox was the asset. Everything else was expendable. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. Questions could wait until they were safe. "The bag," Reese said, already moving toward the hall closet. His fingers found the worn canvas duffel he'd kept packed since his deployment ended 5 years ago. Cash, fake IDs, burner phones, enough supplies for 3 days. Old habits died hard. "Dad, I heard." "In the truck. Now." Maddox grabbed his Nintendo Switch from the coffee table and ran for the garage. Reese swept his laptop into the bag, grabbed his concealed carry from the kitchen drawer, and followed. The Silverado roared to life. 30 seconds after Maddox had crashed through that door, they were backing out of the driveway. Reese drove in silence for 10 minutes, taking random turns through Colorado Springs subdivisions, checking mirrors for tails that weren't there. Route security was automatic after 2 deployments. Never take the direct path. Always assume someone might be following. Vary your patterns. Only when he was certain they were clean did he pull into a gas station parking lot. The Silverado's engine ticked as it cooled. Maddox sat rigid in the passenger seat, hands clenched in his lap. The kid was holding it together, but barely. Reese recognized the signs, the 1,000-yard stare, the controlled breathing, the way Maddox kept glancing at the exits. Combat stress reactions weren't limited to soldiers. "Talk to me, son." Maddox was shaking. Not from cold, from adrenaline crash. Reese had seen it in combat medics after firefights. "I forgot my math book," Maddox said. "Came home during lunch to get it. Mom was on the phone in her office." The door was cracked open. "What did you hear?" She was talking to someone. "A man," she said. Maddox swallowed hard. "She said it's time. The carbon monoxide plan will work. Maddox will be at school." The words hit Reese like a punch to the chest. He forced his expression to stay calm, but his knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "You sure that's what she said?" "Word for word, Dad. I know what I heard." Reese believed him. Maddox had always been sharp, observant. Too smart for his own good sometimes. And right now, that intelligence might have saved both their lives. "Who was she talking to?" "I don't know. She called him Eli. Said something about making it look like an accident. About you working late in the garage tonight." Maddox's voice cracked. "Dad, she was planning to kill you. And you too, kid." Reese didn't say it out loud. Maddox was scared enough already. But carbon monoxide didn't discriminate. If Rowena had planned to stage a gas leak while he was in the garage, she wouldn't have cared if Maddox was home or not, unless she'd planned to send him somewhere safe first. A sleepover, a friend's house, an alibi, and a way to play the grieving widow and mother. "We're going somewhere safe," Reese said. "Somewhere she can't find us." "Are we calling the police?" "Not yet. We need proof first." Maddox nodded. Smart kid. He understood that accusations weren't enough, not against his own mother, not without evidence that would hold up in court. Reese started the engine. The cabin was 40 minutes away, deep in the forest foothills where cell towers couldn't reach and roads turned to dirt. His uncle's old hunting lodge, empty since the funeral 3 years ago. Perfect place to disappear. Perfect place to plan. The key was still under the fake rock by the front steps. Uncle Mike would have laughed at that, always said the best security was being too far from civilization for anyone to bother. Reese opened the windows to air out the mustiness while Maddox explored the 2-bedroom cabin. Dust covered everything, but the propane still worked, the well pump kicked on when he flipped the breaker, and the landline had a dial tone. "It's like camping," Maddox said, trying to sound normal. except with a couch. You doing okay? I'm scared. Honest answer. But I'm glad we left. Reese pulled him into a hug. You did the right thing, son. Running home to tell me. That took guts. I didn't know what else to do. You saved our lives. They heated up canned soup on the propane stove, while Reese thought through the implications. Rowena had been planning his murder. That much was clear. But why? Money? Another man? Both. The tactical side of his brain was already working the problem. In the military, you learn to think like the enemy, understand their motivations, predict their next moves, find their weaknesses. Rowena had just become the enemy that he'd been deployed for 8 months in Afghanistan when Maddox was 6. Rowena had seemed supportive, sending care packages and cheerful emails. Photos of Maddox's school events, updates on home repairs, complaints about loneliness, but always with understanding. But things had been different when he came home. Colder, more distant. She'd stopped initiating physical contact, started finding excuses to sleep in the guest room. He'd assumed it was adjustment stress common enough among military families. Maybe it was something else entirely. Maybe she'd found someone else while he was overseas and been planning this ever since. Dad, Maddox was stirring his soup, not eating it. How long have you known Mom was different? Sharp kid. Too sharp. What do you mean? She's been acting weird for months. Staying up late on her computer. Taking phone calls in private. And she's been mean to you. Mean how? Little comments. About your job, your friends. Making fun of Uncle Mike's cabin. Saying you don't make enough money. Maddox looked up. I heard her tell Mrs. Peterson that she married beneath herself. That stung, but it wasn't surprising. Rowena came from old Colorado money trust funds and country clubs, private schools, and summer homes. Reese was a welder who'd worked his way up to owning a small fabrication business. She'd known that when she married him, or maybe she'd thought she could change him. Some people change, Reese said. Sometimes they become someone you don't recognize. Are you going to divorce her? That depends on what we find out. But no matter what happens, you're safe. That's all that matters. Maddox nodded and finally took a bite of soup. Can we call Aunt Calla? Reese smiled. Calla would know what to do. She always did. The cabin's ancient laptop wheezed to life after 10 minutes of coaxing. Reese connected through his phone's hotspot and logged into his home security system. The Wi-Fi signal was weak but functional enough for basic reconnaissance. The smart home setup had been Rowena's idea. Nest thermostats, smoke detectors, door sensors, cameras, all connected to Wi-Fi, all accessible from anywhere with internet. She'd said it was for peace of mind when he was traveling for work, a way to monitor the house and make sure everything was secure. Now it might be the evidence that buried her. Reese pulled up the morning's logs, scrolling through hours of routine data. Door sensors triggered when he left for work at 8:32 a.m. Thermostat adjusted to energy-saving mode. Motion detectors tracking normal household activity. Everything looked normal until 8:47 a.m., 15 minutes after he'd left for work. The smoke detector in the garage had gone offline. Not low battery. Not maintenance mode. Deliberately disabled. The timestamp was damning. Whoever had disabled it had waited until they were sure he was gone, then accessed the system with admin privileges. Only 2 people had those credentials. Him and Rowena. Son of a bitch, he muttered. Maddox looked over from the couch where he was reading a National Geographic from 2018. The kid was trying to stay busy, trying not to think about what his mother had planned. But Reese could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing at the door. What is it? Someone turned off the smoke detector this morning, right after I left for work. Mom, has to be. She's the only one with admin access besides me. Reese screenshotted the logs and downloaded the data to a flash drive. In court, timestamps were everything. Digital evidence was harder to fake than witness testimony, harder to explain away than circumstantial connections. This proved premeditation with mathematical precision. Next, he checked their bank accounts. The joint checking looked normal. The savings looked normal. But their business account, the one linked to Calhoun Fabrication, was missing $117,000. Reese's hands froze over the keyboard. That money represented 2 years of careful saving, contract deposits, equipment payments. The lifeblood of his business that he clicked through the transaction history. The transfer had happened 3 days ago. Electronic funds transfer to R. Trussell Holdings, LLC. R. Trussell, he said aloud. What? She's been stealing from the business. Transferred money to someone named R. Trussell. Is that the Eli guy? Smart kid. Reese pulled up the business registration for R. Trussell Holdings. The corporate agent was listed as Eli Richard Trussell. Address in Denver. Tech consultant. According to his LinkedIn, Reese leaned back in the creaky office chair, pieces falling into place like a tactical briefing. The picture was getting clearer, and he didn't like what he saw. This wasn't a crime of passion or a sudden decision. Rowena had been systematically planning his murder while systematically stealing his money to die in Afghanistan. The most dangerous enemies weren't the ones who attacked in rage, they were the ones who planned carefully, who waited for the perfect opportunity, who struck when you least expected it. Rowena had been fighting a war against him for months, and he'd never even known he was under attack. Rowena was having an affair with Eli Trussell. She'd been funneling money from the business to him. And when that wasn't enough, or when she'd gotten tired of hiding, she decided to kill her husband and inherit everything outright. Simple. Clean. Profitable. Except Maddox had come home early and heard the plan. The irony wasn't lost on him. His son had just conducted better reconnaissance than most trained soldiers. One overheard conversation had blown their entire operation. Reese saved all the bank records to the flash drive and opened a new browser window. If Eli was a tech consultant, he probably had social media profiles. LinkedIn, Facebook, maybe Instagram. 5 minutes later, he was looking at Eli Trussell's Facebook page. 38 years old, divorced, owned a small IT consulting firm in Denver. Recent posts about hiking in Colorado Springs, dinners at expensive restaurants, a new BMW, and in the background of a selfie from last week, the interior of a coffee shop Reese recognized. The same coffee shop where Rowena said she'd been meeting her book club. There was no book club. Reese closed the laptop and called his sister. Kala answered on the second ring. Hey, big brother. What's up? I need a favor. A big one. You sound stressed. What's wrong? Reese gave her the condensed version. Maddox, overhearing the conversation. The disabled smoke detector, the missing money. Kala listened without interrupting, which meant she was taking it seriously. Jesus, Reese. Where are you now? Uncle Mike's cabin. We're safe for now. Good. Stay there. I'm calling in sick and driving up. Kala, you don't have to. Like hell I don't. Someone tries to murder my brother. They're going to deal with me too. That was Kala, trauma nurse at Presbyterian/St. Joseph Hospital, 5'3" of pure stubbornness wrapped in scrubs and attitude. She'd patched up soldiers in field hospitals before transitioning to civilian medicine, had seen enough violence and betrayal to develop a sixth sense for danger. If anyone could handle this situation, it was her. More importantly, she was the one person in the world Reese trusted completely. They'd grown up together, survived their father's drinking and their mother's early death, enlisted in the army on the same day. Kala had chosen medical corps, while Reese went combat engineering, but they'd always watched each other's backs. I need you to think, Reese said. Has Rowena ever seemed off to you? Different. Honestly? Yeah. Last few times I saw her, she was, I don't know, fake. Like she was acting a part. Acting how? Playing the perfect wife. Too many compliments about dinner. Too much interest in my job. Asking about hospital procedures, patient confidentiality, how we handle suspicious injuries. And she kept asking weird questions about life insurance and inheritance laws. Said it was for a friend. The questions about suspicious injuries made Reese's skin crawl. Had Rowena been planning to claim domestic abuse as cover for the murder? Create a narrative where the dangerous husband finally pushed his wife too far? Reese felt the pieces clicking together. When was this? Couple months ago, at Maddox's birthday party. I thought it was odd, but... Kala paused. Shit, she was planning this for months, wasn't she? Looks that way. What do you need me to do? Can you shelter Maddox for a few days? Somewhere Rowena can't find him. Of course. What about you? I'm going to build a case. Get enough evidence to bury her. Reese, Kala's voice went serious. Are you sure you don't want to just go to the police now? Let them handle it. With what evidence? Maddox overhearing a phone call? Even with the bank records and the smoke detector, it's still circumstantial. She could claim it was a coincidence, or that someone else has access to the accounts. So what's your plan? Get proof of intent. Document everything. Make sure when we do go to the authorities, the case is airtight. Calla was quiet for a moment. This isn't just about building a case, is it? This is personal. She knew him too well. Rowena had tried to murder him. Worse, she'd been willing to risk Maddox's life too. That wasn't something you forgave or forgot. She betrayed everything, Reese said. Our marriage, our family, our son. She doesn't get to walk away from this. Okay, but we do this smart. Legal. No cowboy stuff. Agreed. I'll be there in 2 hours. And Reese? We're gonna nail this bitch to the wall. Calla arrived at the cabin with a bag of groceries, a bottle of bourbon, and a laptop bag that looked suspiciously tactical. Military-grade foam padding, multiple compartments, reinforced corners, not standard civilian equipment. Since when do you carry military-grade equipment? Reese asked, since my brother called and said someone was trying to kill him. She unzipped the bag to reveal a surveillance kit, long-range microphones, wireless cameras, signal boosters, recording devices that looked like they belonged in a spy movie. Hospital security lets me borrow things sometimes. Turns out trauma nurses and intelligence analysts have overlapping skill sets. Maddox hugged her tight, relief flooding his face. Aunt Calla, I'm glad you're here. Me too, kiddo. You did good today. Real good. Most adults wouldn't have had the guts to run when they heard what you heard. I was scared. Smart people get scared. That's what keeps them alive. It's the people who aren't scared that you have to worry about. While Calla got Maddox settled with homework and a handheld game, Reese outlined his plan. They needed proof of the affair, proof of the murder conspiracy, and proof of the financial fraud. All legally obtained, all admissible in court, all strong enough to withstand scrutiny from expensive defense lawyers. The problem is access, Reese said. I can't get close to Rowena without tipping her off that we know. What about Eli? Same issue. If they realize we're onto them, they'll destroy evidence and disappear. We only get one shot at this. Calla poured 3 fingers of bourbon into a coffee mug, studying the problem like a tactical puzzle. What if we let them think their plan worked? How? You don't go home tonight. Rowena stages her gas leak, but there's nobody there to kill. When you don't come home, she has to improvise. People make mistakes when they improvise. Reese considered it. The plan had merit forced the enemy to react instead of acting according to their preferred timeline. Disruption bred opportunity. She'll call the police. Report me missing. Perfect. Let her. Play the worried wife. But we'll be recording everything she says and does. See how worried she really is when she thinks you're dead. We need equipment near the house. I can handle that. Slip in during her yoga class tomorrow morning, plant some devices. Hospital security taught me a few things about covert surveillance. It was risky, but it might work. And it would give him eyes and ears on Rowena's real activities instead of the performance she put on for Reese. There's something else, Calla said. I want to talk to some people at the hospital. Rowena came to the ER a few months ago. Said she'd fallen down the stairs. I remember that. Bruised ribs. The bruising pattern was weird. Not consistent with a fall. I suspected domestic violence and tried to talk to her privately, but she insisted it was an accident. Reese felt cold. You think she was staging abuse? Setting me up. It's possible. If she was planning to frame you for domestic violence, it would give her grounds for divorce and custody, plus a motive for self-defense if she killed you. The calculation was chilling. Rowena hadn't just been planning murder, she'd been building a narrative. The abusive husband, the battered wife, the tragic accident that freed her from a dangerous marriage. Except Maddox had heard the truth. We need to move fast, Reese said. Every day we wait gives her more time to cover her tracks. Agreed. But we also need to be careful. If she's as calculating as she seems, she might have contingency plans. Reese nodded. In the military, you always assumed the enemy was smarter than you were. It kept you alive. Calla left at dawn to plant surveillance equipment while Rowena was at her Tuesday morning yoga class. Reese stayed at the cabin with Maddox, making phone calls and researching their options. His first call was to Arden Kastner, that they'd served together in Afghanistan. Reese as a combat engineer, Arden as a signals intelligence analyst. Arden had transitioned to civilian cybersecurity after discharge, building a reputation as one of the best digital forensics specialists in Colorado. "Reese Calhoun," Arden said when he picked up. "Been a while. Too long. I need a favor, Arden. A big one. Personal or professional? Both. My wife is trying to kill me." Silence. Then, details. Reese explained the situation while Arden listened. No gasps of surprise, no expressions of disbelief. Just professional assessment of the threat. "You need digital forensics," Arden said when Reese finished. "Cloud backups, deleted messages, financial records. The full package. Can you do it legally? If you give me permission to access your shared accounts and devices, yes. Anything she's done on your home network or with your equipment is fair game." "What about her personal devices?" "Trickier. But if she's been using your Wi-Fi or backing up to shared cloud accounts, there might be traces." "Won't know until I look." "How fast can you work?" "Give me remote access to your home network, and I can start today. Full analysis will take 48 hours. "Do it." Reese gave Arden the network credentials and admin passwords. Within an hour, Arden was calling back with preliminary results. "Your wife is sloppy," Arden said. "She's been using the home computer for personal stuff, and automatic cloud backup was enabled. I've got deleted text messages, voice memos, even drafts of emails she never sent." "What kind of texts?" "Conversations with someone named Eli going back 6 months. Very romantic. Also very incriminating." "How incriminating?" Quote, "Once Reese is gone, we'll have the business and the insurance money. We can start fresh in Denver." End quote. Reese felt his jaw tighten. "What else?" "Financial records showing systematic theft from business accounts. Forged documents with your signature. I can prove they're fake because the metadata shows they were created on her laptop. And voice memos of her practicing statements for court." "What kind of statements?" "Testimony about your alleged abuse. She's been rehearsing how to sound convincing when she tells the judge you hit her." The picture was getting clearer and uglier. Rowena had been planning this for months, building a case against him while systematically looting their finances. "How much money are we talking about?" "Total theft looks like $137,000 over 6 months. She's been careful to keep individual transfers small, but it adds up. Enough to start a new life with Eli. Enough to make murder worth the risk. Can you package all of this for legal proceedings?" "Already working on it. Chain of custody documentation, expert analysis of the forgeries, timeline reconstruction. By tomorrow, you'll have everything you need to destroy her in court." "Arden, I owe you. Just glad I could help. Nobody tries to kill one of my brothers and gets away with it." Kala returned to the cabin at noon with updates from her surveillance mission. "Equipment is in place," she said. "Audio in the kitchen and bedroom, video in the home office. Everything's transmitting to a receiver in the neighbors' shed. The Johnsons are on vacation for 2 weeks. Any problems?" "None. Rowena was at yoga, then shopping. I was in and out in 20 minutes. She pulled up the live feeds on her laptop. They could see Rowena's empty office, hear the ambient sounds of the house. It felt strange, watching his own home like a crime scene. "There's something else," Callis said. "I stopped by the hospital and pulled Rowena's ER record from her fall 3 months ago. And the attending physician noted that her injuries were inconsistent with her story. Bruising on her ribs looked deliberate, not accidental. He suspected domestic violence, but couldn't prove it." Reese studied the medical records. The photos showed dark bruises along Rowena's ribcage, the kind you'd get from being grabbed or shoved, not from falling downstairs. "She did this to herself, most likely, or had someone else do it. Either way, she was building a case against you." The calculation was breathtaking. Rowena had been willing to injure herself to frame him for abuse. Combined with the forged documents and the murder plan, it painted a picture of someone completely without conscience. "We need to document everything," Reese said. "Every piece of evidence, every timeline, every connection. When we go to the authorities, it has to be overwhelming." They spent the afternoon building a case file. Arden's digital evidence, the medical records, the bank statements, the surveillance logs. Each piece by itself might be explained away, but together they formed an unbreakable chain. Maddox helped by drawing a timeline on a whiteboard they'd found in the cabin. For an 11-year-old, he had a remarkably clear understanding of evidence and causation. She started stealing money 6 months ago, he said, marking dates with different colored markers. She faked being hurt 3 months ago. She met with Eli last month. And yesterday, she planned to kill Dad. What does that tell you? Kala asked. She's been planning this for a long time. It wasn't something she decided suddenly. Exactly. Which means this is premeditated murder, not a crime of passion. That's a much more serious charge. By evening, they had a comprehensive case file that would make any prosecutor salivate. The question was timing, when to make their move. We could go to the police tomorrow, Callis said. We have enough. Not yet, Reese said. I want to see what she does next. If we're right about her contingency plans, she might try to destroy evidence or disappear. Better to catch her in the act. What if she tries something else? Another murder attempt. She thinks I'm dead. The gas leak plan failed because I wasn't there, but she doesn't know why. She'll assume the timing was off, not that we discovered the plot. Calla nodded slowly. So we let her think she's in control while we gather more evidence. Exactly. Give her enough rope to hang herself. The next morning, Reese made an anonymous call to the El Paso County District Attorney's office that he used a voice modulation app on his phone and called from a burner number, claiming to be a concerned citizen who had overheard a conversation about murder. The intake protocol was routine anonymous tips came in daily, most worthless, some legitimate enough to warrant follow-up. I think someone named Rowena Calhoun is planning to kill her husband, he said, keeping his voice steady and matter-of-fact. She was talking to a man about making it look like an accident. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Said something about a disabled smoke detector. The intake officer took his statement without enthusiasm. Anonymous tips about domestic situations were common and usually unreliable. Jealous neighbors, bitter ex-spouses, family members with grudges. But Reese had included enough specific details to make it worth following up. Specific names, specific methods, specific technologies. Details that could be verified or disproven. Can you provide any additional information about this alleged conversation? They mentioned timing it for when the husband would be working late in his garage. Said the boy would be at school, so he'd be safe. That detail would stick with the intake officer. Child welfare concerns elevated every case, turned routine follow-ups into urgent investigations. Reese was counting on that bureaucratic reflect point. 2 hours later, Calla surveillance equipment picked up a phone call to their house. Mrs. Calhoun, this is Detective Morrison with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your husband. Is he available? Rowena's voice was perfectly composed, not a trace of surprise or concern, which was interesting in itself. Most innocent spouses would have been immediately worried when police called asking about their husband. I'm sorry, he's not here right now. He didn't come home last night, and I'm starting to worry. Is everything all right? When did you last see him? Yesterday morning when he left for work. He said he might be working late on a project, but he always calls if he's staying overnight somewhere. This isn't like him. Perfect performance. Just the right amount of concern, just the right details. She was selling the worried wife act like a professional. Have you tried calling him? His phone goes straight to voicemail. I was thinking about filing a missing person report if he doesn't come home tonight. Perfect. Rowena was playing the worried wife, while secretly believing her murder plan had succeeded. The detective would note her apparent concern, which would make her eventual arrest even more damning. We'd like to come by and talk to you in person, if that's all right. Of course. I'm happy to help however I can. After the call ended, Reese watched the video feed from Rowena's office. She sat perfectly still for 30 seconds, then picked up her phone and dialed. Eli, we have a problem. The police just called asking about Reese. She was quiet while Eli responded. Then, no, I don't think so. They sounded routine, like they were following up on something. But we need to be careful. Another pause. Meet me at the usual place. 1 hour. She hung up and immediately began deleting files from her computer. Not the actions of an innocent, worried wife. Reese called Calla. She's meeting Eli in an hour. Can you follow her? Already on it. I'm parked at the coffee shop she mentioned yesterday. Be careful. If they spot you, they won't. I've got this. An hour later, Calla's voice came through on the radio. Target acquired. They're at a corner table, talking intensely. I'm recording from a next booth. The audio quality was poor, but audible. Rowena and Eli discussing their next moves, unaware they were being watched and recorded. The police don't know anything, Eli was saying. It's probably just routine. Someone reported Reese missing, so they're following up. But what if he's not dead? What if the plan didn't work? Then we stick to the backup plan. You file for divorce, claim abuse, and we disappear with the money we've already moved. I don't want to wait. I want this over with. Patience. If we panic now, we'll make mistakes. I'm not panicking. I'm being smart. Every day we delay is another day for something to go wrong. They talked for another 20 minutes, discussing how to destroy evidence and establish alibis. Rowena mentioned hiring a lawyer, just in case, and suggested they should stop meeting in public. That IT was everything Reese needed to prove conspiracy. Two people discussing how to cover up a murder they'd attempted, but weren't sure had succeeded. When Kala returned to the cabin that evening, she had hours of audio and video that would destroy any chance Rowena had of claiming innocence. She's getting nervous, Kala reported. Keeps looking over her shoulder, checking her phone. The stress is getting to her. Good, Reese said. Stress people make mistakes. What's the next move? We wait. Let her stew for another day or two. The longer she thinks she might have gotten away with it, the more evidence she'll give us. Maddox looked up from his homework. Dad, what happens after we catch her? Reese met his son's eyes. She goes to prison for a very long time. And then what? Then we rebuild. Just you and me and Aunt Kala. Better than before. Reese returned to Colorado Springs on Thursday morning, checking into a motel under a false name and wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. He needed to be close enough to monitor the situation, but far enough away to avoid being spotted. From his motel room, he sent Rowena an email from an untraceable account. You missed something. Evidence exists. Tick, tock. The message was deliberately vague, but threatening enough to panic someone with a guilty conscience. Within 10 minutes, his phone surveillance equipment detected frantic activity at the house. Rowena called Eli immediately. Someone knows, she said without preamble. I just got an email. Anonymous. They said evidence exists. What kind of evidence? I don't know, but we have to assume the worst. Maybe it's just someone fishing, trying to scare you. Or maybe Reese isn't dead. Maybe he knows everything. There was a long pause. Then Eli's voice, tight with fear. If he's alive and has evidence, we're finished. We have to destroy everything. The hard drives, the documents, all of it. I'm coming over. Don't do anything until I get there. Reese smiled grimly. Panic was making them sloppy, just as Kala had predicted. Instead of staying calm and denying everything, they were about to destroy evidence which would prove consciousness of guilt, he called Arden. They're about to destroy digital evidence. Can you get remote access to their devices? Already done. I've been cloning their hard drives for the past hour. They can destroy the originals, but I've got copies of everything. How did you? Eli's smart home system has terrible security. I've been recording everything through his own devices. Perfect. Even if they destroyed the physical evidence. Arden had digital copies that would be admissible in court. 30 minutes later, Eli arrived at the house in his BMW. The audio surveillance picked up their conversation clearly. We burn everything, Eli said. Hard drives, documents, phones. Start fresh with new identities. What about the money? Already moved to offshore accounts. We can access it from anywhere. And if Reese is alive, then we disappear tonight. I've got passports ready. Reese called Detective Morrison at the sheriff's office. This is Reese Calhoun. I understand you were looking for me. Mr. Calhoun, where have you been? Your wife filed a missing person report. I've been investigating my wife's attempt to murder me. Silence. Then, I think we need to talk. The arrest happened simultaneously at 3:17 p.m. Detective Morrison and two patrol officers arrived at the house just as Rowena and Eli were loading boxes of documents into his BMW. Meanwhile, Denver police were executing a search warrant at Eli's apartment, seizing computers and financial records. Reese watched from across the street as his wife was handcuffed in their driveway. Rowena Calhoun, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and identity theft. She maintained her composure until the handcuffs clicked shut. Then she saw Reese standing by his truck, very much alive, and her mask finally slipped. "You son of a bitch," she screamed. "You were supposed to be dead." The officers exchanged glances. Confessions didn't usually come that quickly or that clearly. Eli tried to run, made it 3 steps before a taser dropped him to the asphalt. His laptop bag spilled open, revealing hard drives and documents he'd been trying to destroy. The sheriff's office. Reese gave his formal statement while Arden presented the digital evidence. Hours of recorded conversations, financial records showing systematic theft, forged documents, timeline reconstructions, everything needed to prove premeditated attempted murder. "This is the most comprehensive case file I've seen in 20 years, Detective Morrison said. "Your wife and her boyfriend are done. What about my son? You'll have emergency custody within the hour. Given the circumstances, I doubt she'll ever see him unsupervised again." Within 24 hours, Eli had flipped. Faced with evidence of his role in the conspiracy, he confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Rowena had initiated the plan, he claimed. She'd recruited him, seduced him, convinced him that Reese was abusive and dangerous. "She said you hit her," Eli told detectives. "Show me pictures of bruises. Said you'd threatened to kill her if she left. Did you believe her?" "I wanted to. She was beautiful, sophisticated. Said she loved me." "What was your role in the plan?" "Financial mainly. I helped her move money, set up offshore accounts." "The murder was her idea. You disabled the smoke detector. She gave me the codes. Said it was just to scare you at first, make you think there were problems with the house." The murder plan came later. It was exactly what Reese had expected. When faced with consequences, Eli threw Rowena under the bus to save himself. Honor among thieves lasted only until the handcuffs came out. The district attorney charged them both with attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy, fraud, and identity theft. Eli's cooperation earned him a plea deal, 15 years instead of life. Rowena faced the full weight of the law. The custody hearing was a formality. Rowena sat in an orange jumpsuit, hands shackled, while her public defender made half-hearted arguments about her maternal rights. Judge Patricia Coleman was not impressed. "Mrs. Calhoun, you attempted to murder your husband and endanger your child through carbon monoxide poisoning. You systematically stole from family finances. You fabricated evidence of domestic abuse. In what universe do you believe you should have custody of an 11-year-old boy? Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence." Your client confessed on surveillance video, multiple times, in explicit detail. The judge awarded Reese full custody with no visitation rights for Rowena. She would remain in prison until trial, and if convicted, would serve 25 years to life. After the hearing, Rowena's lawyer approached Reese in the hallway. "She wants to see you. One conversation. She says it's important." Reese almost said no. Then he thought about Maddox, who deserved to understand what kind of person his mother really was. The jail meeting room was stark fluorescent lighting and institutional gray walls. Everything designed to strip away dignity, to remind visitors that they were in a place of punishment. Rowena sat across from him in shackles, her perfect makeup replaced by exhaustion and defeat. The orange jumpsuit made her look smaller somehow, diminished. For a moment, Reese saw the woman he'd married 15 years ago. Young, beautiful, full of dreams about their future together. Then he remembered the voice recordings, the forged documents, the disabled smoke detector, and the sympathy died. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice smaller than he'd ever heard it. Reese said nothing. Let her fill the silence. In interrogations, silence was a weapon. People couldn't stand it, would say anything to fill the void. "I want to explain." "There's nothing to explain." "Reese, please. I know how this looks, but you don't understand the pressure I was under. The marriage wasn't working. I felt trapped, suffocated. I couldn't see any other way out. So you decided to kill me instead of getting a divorce. The prenup. You would have gotten everything. The house, the business, custody of Maddox. I would have been left with nothing. Finally, the truth. It had never been about love or desperation or feeling trapped. It was about money and convenience and her unwillingness to accept the consequences of her choices. Cheaper to murder him than divorce him. Cleaner to make him disappear than fight him in court. I made mistakes, Rowena continued, tears starting to flow. Whether they were genuine or calculated, Reese couldn't tell anymore. But I'm still Maddox's mother. He needs his mother in his life. Children need both parents. You almost killed your son. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her carefully maintained composure cracked, and for the first time in the conversation, her emotion seemed genuine. Raw. Terrified. That's not. I would never have hurt Maddox. Never. He's my baby. Carbon monoxide doesn't discriminate. If he'd been home that night, he'd be dead too. You know that. You planned the timing to avoid it, but plans change. What if he'd gotten sick at school and come home early, like he did on Tuesday? What if your timeline was off? What if he decided to do homework in the garage? Rowena had no answer because there was no answer. She'd been willing to risk their son's life for financial gain, and they both knew it. The mathematics of murder didn't care about maternal instincts. I planned to send him to Calais that night. I had it all worked out. He would have been safe. After. You planned to establish an alibi after staging the murder. But plans change in the field. Equipment fails. Timing gets disrupted. Variables you didn't account for. Reese leaned forward, his voice cold as January wind. You were willing to gamble with our son's life. That's not a mistake. That's who you are. I loved you, she whispered, the words barely audible. No, you love what I could provide. The house, the lifestyle, the respectability. When that wasn't enough anymore, you decided to take it all and start over with someone else. Reese, please. For Maddox's sake, don't. His voice cut through her plea like a blade. Don't ever use our son to justify what you did. You betrayed him more than you betrayed me. He's the one who will have to live with knowing his mother tried to murder his father. He's the one who saved my life by running home to warn me. You turned an 11-year-old boy into the only thing standing between you and homicide. She was crying openly now, mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I can't undo what I did, but you're going to prison for the rest of your life, Reese said, standing to leave. Maddox will grow up knowing exactly what kind of person you are. And when he's older, when he has children of his own, he'll understand that some betrayals are unforgivable. He stopped at the door, but didn't turn around. You almost killed your son. Then he walked out and never looked back. 6 months later, Reese sold Calhoun Fabrication to a competitor for enough money to set up a trust fund in Maddox's name. He used the proceeds to start a smaller shop, custom metalwork and artistic pieces instead of industrial contracts. The new business let him work from home, spending more time with Maddox and less time traveling to job sites. They'd moved to a smaller house near Cal's apartment, close enough for family dinners, but far enough from the old life to feel like a fresh start. Maddox was thriving. His grades had improved, he'd joined a robotics club at school, and he'd started talking about becoming an engineer like his dad. The trauma of his mother's betrayal was healing, slowly but steadily. I don't miss her, he said one evening as they worked together in the shop. Is that wrong? No, Reese said. She made her choices. You don't owe her anything. Do you miss her? Reese considered the question while he measured steel for a custom gate. Did he miss the woman he'd married, or just the illusion she'd created? I miss who I thought she was, he said finally. But that person never really existed. I'm glad it's just us now. Us and Aunt Calla. Me too, son. That night, after Maddox was asleep, Reese built a fire in the backyard pit. He pulled out a box of photos he'd been saving for this moment, pictures of him and Rowena from their wedding, their honeymoon, Christmases and birthdays and family vacations. All eyes. All performances. All worthless now, he fed them to the flames one by one, watching their faces curl and blacken in the heat. Rowena's smile melted away like wax, leaving nothing behind but ash and smoke. Calla found him there an hour later, sitting by the dying fire with a beer in his hand. Burning the past, she asked. Something like that. Feel better? Yeah, actually I do. She sat beside him, and they watched the last embers fade to darkness. You know what I learned from all this? Reese said. What? Some things are worth destroying, just to rebuild better. Calla smiled. Damn right they are. In the distance, they could hear Maddox's even breathing through his bedroom window. Safe. Secure. Home that they'd survived. More than that they'd won. And tomorrow, they'd start building something new.